Introduction. Voting yes on Prop 8 will respect the value and hold that the traditional marriage between a man and a woman be invalid and recognized in California. Also, it keeps our public schools from teaching our children about same-sex marriage.
Some argue that children are better off raised in a male-female headed hold house. Whether there is truth to that argument or not is not the point. Many couples will marry not to have children, gay and straight. Gay and lesbian couples are having children already without benefit of marriage. So are single moms, teenagers, and drug addicts. Preventing a loving same-sex couple from making a legal commitment to each other can only hurt their children. It can send a message, like it did in the case of one Massachusetts couple, that mommy and mommy don't really love each other because if they did, they would get married. How do you explain the legal system to a 5-year-old?
The history. Proposition 8 placed into the California Constitution the same language that the vote already passed by 61% of the votes in 2000. This is necessary to overturn as an outrageous California Supreme Court decision that overturned Proposition 22.
Passed in the November 2008 general election, reaction to the ruling is the most controversial initiative on November's ballot. Proposition 8. The initiative would amend the state's constitution and overturn the California Supreme Court decision. The text of Proposition 8 is short, simple, and to the point. Only marriage between a man and a woman is valid or recognized in California.
Campaign. Voting yes on Prop 8 does 3 things. 1. The word marriage, only a marriage between a man and a woman, is valid and recognized in California. 2. It overturns the outrageous decisions of 4 activist Supreme Court judges who ignored the will of the people. 3. It protects our children from being taught in public schools that same-sex marriage is the same as traditional marriage and prevents other consequences to Californians who will be forced to not just be tolerant of gay lifestyles, but to face mandatory compliance regardless of their personal beliefs.
On Election Day, volunteers spent thousands of hours getting their message across to voters. The campaign on both sides raised a total of $83 million from over 64,000 people in all 50 states and 20 foreign countries. This set an amazing new record nationally for a social policy initiative, stomping out other races in the country in spending except the presidential contest.
Debates. Opponents of California controversial Proposition 8 argue that children in public schools will have to be taught that same-sex marriage is just as good as traditional marriage. Churches may have their tax-exempt status challenged or revoked. Adoption agencies will be forced to place children with same-sex couples regardless of agency's belief. Religion that sponsor private schools with married student housing may be required to provide housing for same-sex couples, even if countered by the church doctrine or risk of lawsuits over the tax exemptions or related benefits. Ministers who preach against same-sex marriages may be sued for hateful speech or risk government fines. Everyone will pay. Changing the definition of marriage will generate a flood of lawsuits which will inflict heavy legal costs upon the parties who are sued upon their business customers.
It's unconstitutional to let a majority take away rights from a minority. For some, they are discriminated by something they inherited by birth and have no control over. It will somewhat benefit economy from numerous new wedding plannings and ceremonies. We must fight for fairness and equality. They should have rights just like any other human beings. This is why America was founded, for freedom. They will finally receive advantage of our government's tax relief programs, just like heterosexuals. And adults should have the right to marry whomever they please.
Religious organizations. Religion strongly believes that marriage is something between a man and a woman, not between same-sex couples. Religion and organizations feel that same-sex should be taught at home, not at school.
Laws that cross the line of the separation of church and state usually falls along the lines of discriminating against a religion. For example, Jews cannot serve as jurors or wanting to endorse a certain religion. Or school kids reciting the Lord's Prayer. No on Prop 8 doesn't break the principles of separation of church and state. neither endorses religious expression or restrict religious freedom.
Miscellaneous. This has been one of the biggest propositions in California's history. There has been very expensive and dangerous protests. A lot of celebrities support yes on Prop 8. Funny thing is, Elton John quoted, "Marriage is something between a man and a woman, but a civil partnership is something between same-sex couples."
Many political figures supported Proposition 8 because it is the conservative thing to do, although President Barack Obama went on television to give his thoughts on the subject, and he stated, "I've stated my opposition to this. I think Prop 8 is unnecessary. I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. I am not in favor of gay marriage, but when you start playing around with the constitutions just to prohibit somebody who cares about another person, it just seems to me that that's not what America is about. Usually our constitutions expand liberties. They don't contract them."
Results. 52% of California voters voted yes on Prop 8, which would not allow gays to marry.
Strong support came from African American voters and those who categorize themselves as religious. Young voters also voted against the ballot measure than older voters, and Republicans are likely to have supported the campaign than were Democrats. Proposition 8 passed. On April 30th, 2009, a group formed as Yes on Equality submitted a ballot, California Marriage Equality Act, resulting a title and summary.
Conclusion. Due to a misunderstanding of Prop 8, it will be put again on the ballot of 2010 with a better understanding, and it won't involve our children.
In this new generation, we have undergone vast changes. The Declaration of Independent States, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whatever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Yes on Equality will give Californians another chance to vote on Proposition 8.